Hello, everybody, and welcome back now for our preparation of Series 2 for the day, Cloud9 Academy versus TSM Academy. But before that, I want to give a quick shout out to Jolly, our representative from the amateur broadcasts. 100 Thieves next. They're out. They're out. FlyQuest Academy. They made it. 100 Thieves next. What's up with that, Jolly? What's up with that? Josh, you also predicted them, so you're a turncoat right now.
You know, you also predicted 2-1 Kangas, okay? All
right. True. All right, and the funny thing is we never even had the graphic fly, so that I could just be making this up and you would have no idea.
There's no proof.
There's no proof.
No proof.
Exactly.
There's absolutely no clips here, right? Nobody remembers anything. I still feel like I won. I know, like, FlyQuest, we're not looking super great coming into this, but again, all of our academy teams, they hit proving grounds powered by Verizon, and it is total devastation across the board. All of the teams that we had some questions about are answering them right off the bat. FlyQuest are looking fantastic. They look for everything all over the place.
Exactly. But that brings us to our next match now. What's in the past is in the past. Let's bring our attention forward because they have Cloud9 Academy versus TSM Academy. TSM, the only academy team yet to drop a game to an amateur team in their play-ins match against Maryville. You referenced that correctly, Joshi, on the last cast. And now they're up against the number 2 academy seed, but number 3 seed overall in Cloud9 Academy. And with that, well, let's also take a look at the bracket. We can update everybody as we go throughout the day and throughout the tournament what it's looking like and shaping up to be, because you'll notice something on the upper bracket that we've been referencing a couple times here. PG brought to you by Verizon. A lot of academy here on the top side.
Oh, yeah. In fact, it is only academy at this point. And as we start looking at the potential quarterfinal, the upper bracket quarterfinals, it will be 8 academy teams.
Regardless of what happens for this next match, that is correct. As we take a look now at the lower bracket, which will be updated, I believe, with what happened in that last series. 100 Thieves next will go up against Winthrop University. They've already shown that they struggled a little bit against Maryville on the collegiate side earlier on in the qualifiers, so maybe Winthrop can bring it to them. But of course, every team does have 2 lives in this bracket system. The top 16 teams have a double elim ahead of them. So just to update everybody, that's the future of the broadcast going forward. But now bringing us back to the attention at hand, Cloud9 Academy. I want to start with them. This roster, the narrative of them throughout the season. Joshi, if you remember all the way back to like week 1, week 2, it was, where is the real roster? They don't have all their players playing as starters here. And then throughout the split, they started getting everybody in. That first series was really rough against Golden Guardians Academy. Malice's first game, he was jet lagged, did not have a lot of sleep, did not have any scrim time with the team. I believe they played like 1 or 2 games to practice ahead of time. But then since then, they have been on an absolute tear.
Yeah, it took them a little while to figure out what was originally going on, but as we said, Malice was a little bit jet-lagged, and then this team took Academy by storm when they actually had their full roster together. They looked fantastic. They were beating everybody. They were taking objectives super, super quickly, and it didn't feel like any team had really had an opportunity to play them whatsoever on even terms. But eventually, you know, as people have said, people are starting to figure them out a little bit. They weren't as dominant in the last parts of the Academy season as they were when they first got their roster.
And Jelly, that's the thing about a team that has one really strong identity. When Cloud9 Academy really play through Malice as a farming jungler, he doesn't have a lot of early presence in any of the lanes. He just does full clear, focus on objectives. He plays things like Karthus jungle, Evelynn jungle. It's a little easier for teams to research that and then figure out ways to beat it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the current meta being so aggressive. I mean, we just saw like level 2 ganks starting, right, previously. And so when you're looking at TSM as a team to oppose that, Hyper is more than capable. Viper is another hyper aggressive one. And I got to talk about Kaiduo because this is a player that just pops off. Recently, his rise has been insane. Whether it's the realm warps, whether it's just the ability to lock down enemies and be in the right place at the right time every time. He also has really good reactions to ganks. So that's something that I love to see coming out of a mid laner. And of course, Instinct and Yurson, but they have been staples here for such a long time, so strong. And Yurson, same thing with the roaming. I love to see it coming out of these supports. He's a strong roamer.
He does like to get around the map. And Joshi, when we go back to the history of TSM Academy, they had a rocky start as well, a very long losing streak. They're coming in as the last seed from Academy, so 19th seed overall. But Kaidoa coming in at the very end of the split with Takeover being promoted to LCS. Kaidoa had a couple of rocky early games, but like Jolly referenced, his recent performances have been looking pretty stellar.
Yeah, and it's a very similar thing that we were seeing with Cloud9, right? When you have this roster constantly in flux, it is hard to get scrims with the roster that you know you're going to be playing with. And even if 4 members are the same, substituting one person can have huge changes in the way that you play. And the difference that we've been seeing with Yurson and Shen Yi is the fact that Shen Yi, I mean, he will just go for it and flash on you level 1.
Yeah.
But Yurson is constantly looking for these crazy flank angles, and sometimes it makes him look really good.
So let's take a look at that. As we look at Yurson's clips and recent performances here, we can actually get an insight into the aggressive roaming playstyle of the sport. Jolly, you had been the one to highlight it initially. Yurson is that trigger button for TSM Academy.
Oh, he really is. I mean, he is get up and go from minute 1. That's the thing. And there's a lot that you can put onto the back of instinct. But really, when it comes to like cohesion, continuing fights, or even sacrificing his life just to ensure that the fed jungler doesn't go down, or that his laner stays alive and is in a position to actually re-engage on some fights, it's always incredible. He loves these takies. They're very prevalent right now. They're very strong. So he tends to get what he wants, at least in some manner, because he does have a pretty deep champion pool.
And Joshi, even back to like the early seasons of Yurson, last year, I remember when we would cast, we'd always say, Yurson only plays engaged champs. That's really the only champions in his wheelhouse. He has been picking up some enchanters lately, but that's still his default that he likes to go back to.
Right, it's the Alistair, right? Cow God yours. And also, for a quick shout out for anybody else who wants to get these player cards, send us your fun facts, right? This is what happens. If you want your fun facts on it, let us know what they are. This is where we had Yurson come in and say, hey, you know, I want a player card made about me, and we'll talk about you as long as you're looking good. We'll have plenty of things to say. And Yurson,
I hear he's friends with an LCS player. I hear he's friends with an LCS. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's no big deal.
No biggie. No
That's
biggie.
a pretty big name. Takeover. That's a solid one. I can't really say the same. I'm not friends with an LCS player, so.
All right. Well, Jolly's friend list aside, let's take a look now at Cloud9 Academy on their win condition, because when we look at Cloud9 Academy, Malice is the big name, usually the one that dictates how they play, but oftentimes when you think about carry performances, we think about that engine of the team. Copy is actually the player that has been standing out often in a lot of their matches. And as we look at his highlight plays, you can start to see why.
I've been really excited about this player this entire season, right? I mean, we saw him go from a very supportive member, kind of the 5th member of the Cloud9 Academy from 2021, where he was playing the set, the karma, anything that was defensive to set up the rest of the team. But this year, he's like, nah, that's not what I'm like. I want to go for all these big plays and show why I was #1 in the ladder.
I mean, this guy started playing Nunu literally every role. You know, you gotta have resilience if you're gonna say not a single role was untainted by my devastating Nunu, and he's really good at it. So, you know, you gotta admire the pressure that he's able to put, and currently the champion pool really fits his play style.
Well, I mean, when you start at 9 years old, maybe you just can't comprehend that, you know, there's something that's role selection League of Legends.
He did say,
so I'm not going to hold it against him.
He didn't quite know. He did. He really actually did. There's a cool interview. If you go to his Twitter page, I was looking for some clips and watching some stuff of him, and yeah, there's some cool stuff on there, and you find out a lot about this player, and he didn't know, so he tried everything. Why not?
Hey, why not give it a shot in every single role? But with that said, we're getting ready for pick and ban, so let's quick cover predictions, what we expect coming into this match, because this is now 2 Academy teams up against each other. Last time I was surprised that I was the only one on the FlyQuest side, but now it's Jolly with the 2-0 TSM Academy. Defend yourself.
They're doing it. They got the hunger, okay? TSM Academy, they have the capabilities, all right? They have been recently popping off. This is why I'm so confident in this team right now. Well, we're going to have to see how C9 Academy adapts. I think TSM, they're on an upward climb, and they're going to continue that.
Hey, you know what? When we talk about the jungle matchup, maybe Hyper, he's had a couple of really hot games in a row. If he's getting aggressive up in Mouse's face, that could be a win condition for them. I like the spice, Jolly. I appreciate it. And with that said, we're ready for pick and ban now for game number 1. So I'm going to pass it over to the casters to get us underway.
Oh, thanks, Kangas. I like to root for the underdogs, you know, and I do think, at least when it comes to standings, when it comes to consistency and how well C9 is playing, they are the underdogs here. But I think they got it in them today, Joshi. Plus, I like to mix up the desk a little bit, you know.
You can't have everybody on the same side, right? It just
It's
makes
true.
it a very boring desk. But this is definitely a spot where I feel like I'm even more confident in Cloud9 than I was in 100 Thieves Next, right? The ability for these guys to play and their just raw skill, just kind of across the board, has made them a team to be feared. They can beat a lot of the other Academy teams just off of their laning phases alone. And this is something that, as we start looking at TSM, yeah, Kaidwa has been looking a lot stronger towards the end of the Academy season. But going up against Copy, who some people are saying should be even replacing Fudge on the LCS roster for Cloud9, that's a tall task.
That's true. It is a tall task. And yeah, I mean, the numbers mean that it seems like you are more confident. You know, 2-0 is a bold statement for sure coming from me, especially given that I gave a 2-1 over to the side of 100 Thieves, and I was really rooting for those boys just to, you know, reinforce that Amateur deserves to be here. But when it comes down to it, we're going to have to see exactly how things play out because there is still a lot of promise with TSM Academy as a team. Normally, I'm not a TSM proprietor, but I really like these players. I've seen quite a bit of them, and I've seen a lot of improvement.
Yeah. I also want to do the same thing that we did last time, Charlie, in our first series. For anybody who is new to joining us here at the Proving Grounds, powered by Verizon, what are we watching? This is the equivalent of the Academy plus Amateur playoffs, right? We bring all the teams from Academy and the best teams from Amateur, and we have them play against each other for your entertainment in a way to kind of showcase all the new talent that is on their way to try and play in the LCS. And what we've been seeing so far, this is one of our first Academy on Academy matchups that we've seen. And this is going to be one of the big opportunities to kind of showcase how strong a lot of these teams are and which one of these teams is going to be making it towards the top 8 of the upper bracket in order to continue playing up against all the other Academy teams that have still been winning.
Exactly. It's all wins coming from Academy, but today one of them is absolutely going down. There's no doubt about that. Joshi, and does look like there's a lot of focus on trying to ban out Malice here. You've got the Evelyn, we've got the Karthus. That's exactly what you and Kankus were talking about. You've also got the Karma taking away some really strong picks, but that still leaves the Hecarim up and available. That means, though, TSM Academy is going to be able to pick up some power picks of their own, and that's going to be the Jinx and the Graves.
Yeah, it's one of the things that you always have to talk about in Cloud9. Because Malice is such a unique champion pool, you kind of get rid of the parts that you don't want to have to learn to play against, and you go up against things that you know everybody else is already going to be running as well. A lot of junglers have been playing the Hecarim, so you're very used to playing it, and we'll see how well TSM is going to be able to react because they instantly pick 2 guns, right? You got the Jinx and the Graves just ready to throw down over and over again. And I feel like the adaptability of this Graves in particular, where it can be played in the top lane and in the jungle, means that both Viper and Hyper are ready to rumble.
I like that, Hover. C9, they're thinking spicy, all right? That wasn't just a flex in the champion pool. It is, however, just as I was kind of hoping here, Kaiduo is going to get that champion that I was talking about. He has been popping off on this rise, and we'll have to see if the amount of damage that is currently picked up on the side of TSM Academy can be reinforced by a bit of frontline and a bit more engage.
Yeah, I really like this coming through from both sides, right? There's a lot of damage, as you said, on the TSM side, but they need ways to actually get these team fights started. Because if you don't have a way to get a team fight started against an Ahri, she's going to pick you off. She has the ability to just lock down any one of these squishy members and blow them up, and as we were saying with Spyrax earlier, that's an easy way into a lot of these fights. And as TSM are banning away some of these enchanters or ways to make Zeri super fast, they need to try and find a way to blow up everyone, right? It's not just a matter of killing the Hecarim, because he can stand up for a really long time. You also need to eventually find a way to get to the Zeri.
And that's what we can see right here. This ban phase 4 Cloud9 Academy is starting with the Tom Kench, who is a nice ability to either pull some of these members out or also continue on the fight, providing a lot of damage. And I was gonna say that Gnar is a good one to follow that up with. He would be a good pickup here. Obviously, the Graves is a bit of a flex, as we've been seeing him picked up more in the jungle than we previously were. He was primarily in the top here. We do know how hyper aggressive Hyper likes to be. This is a normal pick for him as well. So, on the other side, you're looking for engage, you're looking for crowd control, you're looking for frontline. Nautilus, he checks off all those boxes.
It's the Yursong Classic, right? He's been playing this. Well, he's Calgod Yuri's. He's also going to be this Nautilus player all the time, just like Sword likes to play it. And against the Zeri, gives you some of the lockdown that you need. And so, Cloud9, I feel like they have a lot of options, and they can kind of do whatever they want because they have such a solid core in the 3 champions that they picked up so far that it's really a matter of how do they want to play. The Renata Glass comes through for Isles, but Darshan, I mean, normally he's the one who just blinds the Narns like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? But he's already banned it away, so I wonder what his next pick is going to be.
Yeah, you can kind of pick and choose here. Like you said, those first three, kind of like in the previous series that we saw, it allows a lot of adaptability and, you know, kind of a lot of freedom in how you round out the rest of the team, because you have this engage, this initiation, like you were talking about, the Ari, you've got the Hecarim on board. It's gonna be a Tryndamere because they just want extra damage, they want more engage, and the survivability will allow everybody on the backside to stay alive.
Yeah, the Akali would be very interesting coming through, but I just want to give Darshan some credit because he was the original Tryndamere player, right? There's a lot of people in professional play who have been playing it over the past year, but this was something that Darshan was playing before it was cool. He was playing it into Gangplank every opportunity he could in Academy because he says, like, yeah, even though this champion isn't going to be able to always team fight as well as other champions, he still has a place in the meta. He can run down people in the side lane, and he has more experience on this champion than probably everybody else combined at this point. And Viper says, that's okay, I'm going to play Akali into it, which is super, super bold.
It really is, and I mean, Darshan's Tryndamere, it was hovered for a while, we can see there, and the rest of the team was probably kind of considering the same thing of, all right, well, not only is that tough for a matchup for you right here, Viper, as an individual, but when it comes to the overall composition, we kind of needed a little bit more aggression on the front line, but not a squishy champion who can get locked down and picked off here, and that's what Akali can potentially do for this team. I like the Jinx and the Nautilus. We're probably going to see more action down at the bottom than we have seen so far today, just because most of these fights have been taking place towards the top side of the map. But I don't really know. I'm kind of scared for the fact that I went 2-0 on this one for TSM Academy.
I'd be feeling scared for you too.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, this composition, I see it, I get it. I don't know if I, would put money on this team. That's tough.
Whew. We don't promote gambling here.
That's true.
Bad,
that's a
bad
good point.
job.
Hey,
That's okay.
I said I wouldn't.
There you go.
anyway,
There you
so,
go.
yeah.
No gambling. But anyway, as we load onto the Rift, I do want to take a brief moment to talk about how Darshan versus Viper has kind of been like this perennial matchup that we've been seeing in the top lane for quite a long time. And oftentimes when we were seeing Viper on previous incarnations where he was playing alongside he looked really, really good. He was able to create a lot of the advantages with all the pressure that his jungler was able to put out, but adapting to TSM has been very different because Hyper doesn't play towards Viper nearly as much, and this means that Darshan should feel really, really comfortable. He's been taking a lot of the other top laners to task. He's really been controlling the laning phase a lot better than almost everybody in Academy, and this is an opportunity for him to kind of try his stuff because Viper's not going to be beating him in the first couple levels.
He's not, but you got to imagine that based on knowing that, Hyper also recognizing the instinct in Yerson should be all right for the beginning of the match. They can allow it to push if they need to, so Hyper can focus on Viper. Sure, maybe we're not as familiar with him focusing on that top lane and putting pressure there early on, but we also know that Graves is one of those champions where regularly he wants to get a little bit of farming done. He can go in at level 2. He can jump in at level 3 easily to try to get some early pressure. Darshan, hey, he picked Tryndamere into this one. I mean, we've got a bold team.
Yeah, wow, that was aggressive coming through from Darshan, but hey, not going to get punished for it whatsoever. At the same time, though, I want to take a brief moment to talk about one of our younger players on the other side, if we get a chance to, is they're just fighting.
Isles. Trying to support this one as much as possible. It's some good damage onto Yerson. Instinct, of course, is still feeling okay, but did burn quite a bit of mana on trying to get some of those rocket shots off.
Yeah. Also, the passive coming out from Isles is insane in these early game fights. But we're not going to see a whole lot more of it, so that gives me time to talk about Instinct, who I wanted to talk about in the first place. He's one of our youngest players here, and Darshan, leave him alone! I want to talk!
It's just some backs and forths. I mean, this is what we got to expect from Darshan all day long, though. You talked about how comfortable he is on this champion, and especially knowing that they probably have a bit of an upper hand in this matchup.
Yeah.
That's not going to stop.
Yeah. I mean, he already blows the Ghost at level 1, super confident in his ability to take these fights, and I don't blame him, right? Tryndamere at level 1 is incredibly hard for most champions to deal with, but finally, I think I'm going to have an opportunity to talk about... No, Darshan,
nope, you're not.
Calm down, calm down. Okay, they're never going to kill each other here, right? So I'm going to talk about Instinct. One of the youngest players that we've been seeing coming through, had an entire year on 100 Thieves Next in 2021, now coming through to play for Academy. And he's one of these big people that I first learned about when Prussian, one of the CLG analysts, was originally talking about him as this kind of team fighting savant, right? His ability to play defensively aggressively was really kind of a step above a lot of the amateur AD carries last year, and that's part of why he's now playing here for TSM Academy. That's something we still continue to see. He's always playing in the right spot. His threat assessment has been really, really strong. But the thing that we really need to see from this player to get him to step up is hitting the right targets more aggressively.
And, you know, we saw how much damage he's able to deal, right? Including in that little, what was the game? Whose stats are they anyway? We saw just massive numbers coming out of this player. So that is definitely something that you have to kind of anticipate here. Viper still taking so much, though, and that is where the struggle is going to continue for TSM. I want to see Hyper navigate his way to this top side, because if Viper goes down once or twice, it's going to be so difficult for him to find any sort of recovery in this game.
It's going to be really tough. And I love the fact that Darshan just willing to go in for those single auto attacks against Viper, because he knows he has a sustain advantage. There's nothing left for Viper to do. And now that this wave is bouncing back, Viper's going to be having to either stick around in a very dangerous position where Malice is already here, or he's going to have to back and give his opponent a freeze.
Here it is, he gets a low. He's able to match them, but he's not able to escape from this fight. The Shroud helps him survive for a moment. It's the flash forward. Malice trying to go in for it, and Viper actually makes it out alive.
All right. I mean, good play from Viper to keep himself alive, but the damage is already done. The fact that Malice is coming up here and forcing Viper to back away means that Darshan free to try and crash this and deny a ton of experience because of this play, and now he's going mid lane.
That's a flash forward from Kaiduo. He's able to get out too. Not a ton of wasted time, though, for Malice. He's Hecarim. He's got quick clears. He's got quick mobility. So he's just going to be able to go right back into the jungle and farm some.
Yeah, and it's good stuff coming through. So as we take a bit of a quick replay, right, the biggest thing is that Viper is able to dodge away from that E, right? He doesn't get knocked out of the Shroud, and that little bit of extra damage and the fact that he would have been visible for a bit longer would have actually killed Viper. So good stuff to him for staying alive, but we do got to keep track of when he will actually come online, because at level 6, he gets to play the game against most top laners. Unfortunately, Tryndamere doesn't die to Akali.
Nope, he doesn't, and Darshan does have the pressure in this lane. He's 10 up on creep right now. Of course, the flash is gone from Viper. The flash was burned earlier by Darshan, but keep in mind, he used his Ghost really early to get some pressure onto Viper, meaning that's almost back up and available. So with Darshan having the advantage on experience in this one, you have to be so careful if you are Viper moving forward. Copy, though, is the one that needs to be careful right now. It's on the side of TSM, but a flash out of Yurson is going to equal first blood thanks to a beautiful charm out of Copy, the emote to follow it up.
I think Yurson earned that one a little bit. Cow God yours is going to be going down right off the bat. The idea is good if you don't expect Copy to flash it. Unfortunately, he does.
There's a flash
my God.
as well. It's another charm on the Kaiduo, who's not going to be able to deal enough damage to Copy here to stay alive, thanks to the help from Isles as well.
Are you still feeling good at that prediction, Jolly? Because I said
I was feeling bad as soon as this composition was locked in, or both of these teams were locked in. TSM maybe finding something here onto King, but it's going to be the flash forced out as well as the heal. Instinct still has both.
Yeah, I mean, well played from Instinct to just walk forward, land all the damage that he needs to, but this is definitely kind of a showcase of Isles going up and kind of doing Yurson's job, but better, right? It was just very easy for Isles to walk up, and he just holds Kaidoa for so long in order to get Copy to find that, and that's one of the things that we see a lot of his Malice. Oh, this is rude.
Malice just comes in, steals that, says thank you very much, I'll head right back into my jungle, and in fact, it might be a play onto Yurson. It's going to be the Blast Cone that Malice drops down here. Isles in the wings. Yurson gonna pop that Hex Flash.
Yeah. Makes me think of Skimmy when I see Malice do stuff like that. Slam bam, thank you, man, but here comes the teleport.
There it is, Kaiduo looking for something on this. Malice turns it around, though. It's a nice shot onto King to ensure he can't see with the smoke screen, and he's going to go down, but Malice takes down Kaiduo before
Copy
that.
cleans this up.
On the way. That means that Yurson here and Hyper have decided to navigate farther into the enemy jungle, and this cannot quite spell good news based on the fact that all towers are
Viper's
still up and
here.
available. Hyper gets bumped right into all three members thanks to that Blast Cone. Can Yurson get out? Maybe. Oh,
Wow, I'm actually surprised.
Malice pops the ghost. He doesn't want to let Yurson get away. He's going to use the sweeper. Yurson gets that dredge line just in time. Viper is in the wings, but can Yurson do enough? The passive is popped. Yurson might be able to get out of this one. The charm onto Viper, though.
Okay.
He takes down Malice. Copy is going to deal too much damage, but it's Kaido in the wings, and interrupting potions and the ability to hop over the wall.
Okay, copy, and the rest of Cloud9 being a little over-aggressive as the rocket sails by. I'm not going to be doing anything there, and while it's impressive that Viper was able to pick up this little bit of an entire kill for himself, he's lost so much EXP. Darshan an entire level higher, but Malice hitting level 6 in the middle of this play, right? He's able to get that extra bit and find the onslaught of shadows, and that gives enough time for King to actually get that first reset. Unfortunately, it gets taken down once again, and we see the rest of the, yakety sax playing as everybody runs around, and people just will not let it go, man. He's gone. He's got the lower cooldown every time he hits terrain with the Q, and just running right into Viper.
Ends up working out. Yeah, the timing on that was absolutely perfect. And it was a little bit late on the Ghost, too, coming out of Malice, right? I think he didn't want to let Yurson get away with that much health. It was kind of an ego thing, it feels like, at that point. Malice maybe kicking himself a little bit for that, but hey, if that's the worst that play is going to go, you're still feeling all right if you're C9. Yeah,
I mean, if this is a movie, too, the hero says, oh, you're not getting away with this, chases him down every single time they catch him. So, unfortunately for Malice, this isn't quite an anime. You are going to have to run him down, but look at what's happening topside. Even though Viper gets that kill, down 36 CS, he has half of his opponent's CS.
That is a rough place to be. He does have the kill. It's the consolation prize, but when you're going up against somebody like this Tryndamere as a colleague, you're 2 levels down. You have to sit far back, and you have to play based on Darshan's movements. You have to wait for the pressure to come through on this lane. There is at least a level for Viper, and Darshan just says, hey, I can go under tower, bully you around if I want. I don't even have to use my ultimate at this point.
Viper ulted. But Viper does. Right, you need to make sure you have that kind of ability to move around, and Darshan, he's just going to get that little bit of auto attack because he's got such an insane sustained advantage. How does Viper deal with that? The answer is he doesn't.
Maybe with a little bit of help, but it's not going to be Viper's team
Wrong
that
help.
comes up. It is Copy who decides to try to go in. All he needs is a charm. He's going to move forward. Doesn't even need the Spirit Rush available. Undying Rage does come out. Darshan continues to take that tower, and Copy picks up an easy kill.
And another play goes over to Darshan. This is a brutal situation that TSM have found themselves in, where this Tryndamere is in total control of the top side of the map and probably almost their entire gold lead at this point. Let's be real, because Kaidua and Instinct both have these small CS advantages that will be building themselves up, and there's no way that Hyper catches Darshan here either.
No way. He's at least able to pressure this out a little bit, but that's not very fun for if you are Viper. Of course, it's now more than double, all right? Even with a little bit of pressure that Viper tried to get right there, he ends up going down. That means that Darshan is essentially almost at the point where he can start to navigate away. Sure, he doesn't have teleport, but the Ghost means that he'll be able to get back into lane or into one of these fights pretty quickly if he needs to. And the earlier they can shut down TSM in this game, the earlier they can just snowball it out and win the game.
We said that Cloud9 have a lot of tools. They are very well-rounded, right? They can do a little bit of everything. But the one thing that they are going to be a little bit lacking in is this primary engage. They just kind of have to send Malice full on into the enemy team, and there's enough damage on the side of TSM that is not going to be the safest thing in the world. And so it becomes this very finesse-focused game where Cloud9 are just able to make a lot of individual plays and rely on their individual talent. And when Cloud9 are able to force that kind of game up against TSM, that should be something they're very happy to do because they are individually regarded as much stronger across the board.
They really are, and now it's 11.5 minutes in, a 2K gold lead. It's not massive, but it is definitely something that's going to be helping, and we saw that everywhere aside from the bottom lane, that gold is in favor right now of Cloud9, and these are the players that they want to snowball on the early on. You can send King down to do some side laning later, and you have Renata Glass really just showing up to be able to throw down some support and get that ultimate out in the later parts of the game. TSM, however, is now struggling so badly, not just in the top side, but you got to consider Kaidua on this incredible champion that he does so well on is not finding any favorable matchups.
We'll see what he can do. I feel like TSM, they have been kind of a perennial underdog for the entirety of the spring split here in Academy. They really struggled, and a big part of it was the fact that they weren't having a consistent roster, but now they're fighting the first fight.
Malice is the one that goes in. Onslaught of Shadows comes out, and it is the depth charge onto Malice. Can enough damage be dealt? Kaidua almost gets copied down, but it's Yurson and Kaidua now on the run. A double kill to Malice. Not a single member here of Cloud9 is going to go down.
Oh my gosh, they get everything, and they get to drop the Herald. Oh my god. King even just gets to go push the wave because he's... Oh, area, and now they're going to be getting a ton of damage here. 4 kills for nothing, going over to Cloud9. I didn't think this was going to be particularly close. I was going to say, you know, we need to talk a little bit about how one-sided I'm kind of expecting this series to be, and seeing this entire go down is 6,000 gold lead at only 13 minutes is kind of a testament to, yeah, maybe Cloud9 aren't the best Academy team based on the estimations of the other teams, but they still play so well, and I feel like TSM do everything they realistically can to lock down Copy, but he gets the fight or die, the bailout coming through, and then just the resets that come out of this champion. Look at how much HP he ends that fight with after literally dying.
It's a rude place if you are TSM, and there's still 30 seconds left on these towers, so every single plate on the top side is also going to go over to Darshan. This gold lead is just growing and growing. Add another 500 to that in favor of this blue side team, and look at level 11. This entire game, Darshan has consistently been 2 levels up as soon as he was able to hit 6 over Viper, and I mean, it was already a hard lane to begin with here, Joshi.
It was, and this is one of those things where you kind of have to ask, what does Darshan choose to do next? He's generally considered one of the best top laners that we have in Academy. He's an incredibly strong laner, and if he can isolate the rest of the game into 1v1s, we've seen that he was able to get like that 1v5 pentakill on Lee Sin last year. He's able to take all of these duels. He knows his champions incredibly well, and as long as the rest of his team is able to create a situation where he's able to isolate members of TSM, Cloud9 are going to be looking really, really strong, but they do also want to put that clock on. They have Darshan in the mid lane. They're going to be picking up this dragon, and with these bounties available to TSM, it doesn't feel like it's going to matter at all because he'll never be able to get them.
Now Hyper is on the run. Look at the damage that
Bam.
Malice is doing. That's insane. He's 1 level up, but he's got the double buffs on him, and look at the items under his belt as well, plus a little bit of resilience. On top of that, Darshan, as you mentioned, in the mid lane was able to push that one in. That forces basically all of TSM to go have to fix the lanes that were just forced out by C9. And now the second dragon is picked up pretty quickly here by Cloud9.
Yeah. I'm not sure what Hyper used his ultimate on. I'm guessing it was probably to try and secure the Scuttle Crab, but regardless, it does go over to Darshan, and as the rest of the map just kind of crumbles for TSM, it becomes incredibly difficult for them to walk anywhere because look at what Copy's doing. He's been sitting around this blue buff for the past like 30 seconds. He's just waiting for people to get caught out in rotation, and he is 404, and you can't even find him because there's no wards.
It's so rough. He's got a 400 gold bounty. It's 15 and a half minutes in the game. That's just unfair. 10 stacks on the Darksteel, Joshi, at 15 and a half minutes. That is just so dang rude. And the longer this goes on, the harder it ends up being here for TSM because they can't even navigate in their own jungle on the own side of their map safely. And sometimes it's just one member like we see here by Darshan bullying TSM around.
Bullying multiple members of TSM, right? Just taking away a couple of Krugs. But the person we're going to have to be watching for a lot of the rest of this game, we brought him up at the beginning of the day, Copy, one of these players, one of the graduating members of the 100 Thieves next that we just saw play earlier, but a very different version. Now Darshan, 1v3.
Yursan does manage to find that ultimate. He's going to be able to follow it up with the Dredge Light, but it hits the minion because Darshan has the speed. He popped the Ghost. He's going to continue pressuring this lane. He doesn't even need another member of the team. C9 can kind of do whatever they want across the map.
That's the worst possible place to be in. When you are bringing up multiple members, you throw out the ult that's supposed to lock down somebody and guarantee an engage. Doesn't even find that. And look at this, Cloud9 just going to be slowly starving out Hyper. Malice normally builds up these CS leads on his own. That's what he's been known for, his ability to just create pressure by farming everything. But Copy, leave him alone.
Woo. Hyper does manage to get out. It was a nice flash in the opposite direction. The charm ended up going perpendicular to where he stepped, but still, what difference does it make when you're so far behind as a team, creeping closer and closer to a 10k gold lead? And man, we're 3 minutes away from Baron spawning here, Joshi. It's starting to feel like some cyberbullying that we are watching right here by C9.
Yeah, it's definitely a suffering from success thing, where after Cloud9 gets these inner turrets, the question is like, okay, well, what do we do next? There's no Baron to take. Hyper coming around and says, haha, you can't see. And King's like, okay, well, I'm going to walk out of it. What are you going to do about it? They're not actually in chat, right? So, that would be a little bit weird if Hyper was actually saying that, but I think you get the idea.
Oh yeah, no, I always put words into the players' mouths. I feel like it animates them a little bit more than we see as the champions here, because these are 10 individuals that we are watching playing on these champions. You gotta consider that they are struggling with a lot of stress here. Hyper, just so rude right there. It is going to be King who actually manages to pick that one up, so it didn't work as well as he thought. But that's going to be another objective going over to Cloud9.
Yeah, and that is the second Scuttle Crab that Cloud9 have taken out from underneath the wings of Hyper. And, like, Darshan
doesn't even care. He really doesn't care. You got to use the Shroud if you're Viper here. He
Okay.
did use the Undying Rage, though, so that gives Viper the opportunity to reinitiate. It's still 2 levels in favor of Darshan, but the Ignite comes out.
Let's go, Viper!
He gets a massive shutdown, and Darshan gets put back in check.
That was honestly a pretty sick outplay coming from Viper, and that's one of the things why I love watching this player. Down multiple levels, down a huge amount of CS, but still able to find the solo kill up against Darshan, and that's the thing I love about watching this guy. We've seen other games where they got absolutely stomped, but it was still close, right? You still were sitting there like, there's no way Viper does this, right? And this is a situation where I feel like the answer is still probably no. They're still down 9,000 gold. But the fact that he's able to make these plays even in these spots are showing that he's thinking so much and understanding it's not a matter of can I win or do I lose. It's under what conditions do I win. And he finds the angle.
I like that. He does manage to find the angle. It took a couple of struggles, but now he is ahead. He's got the 2 kills. He's got his proto belt. He's starting to stack up some more items here and starting to catch up also just in how far back Darshan had pushed him in the early parts of the game. So no matter what, that says a lot, and you always have to fear a player like Viper who is able to pull some of these things off. And again, two levels down in situations that are dire.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if it's enough to bring TSM back in. Viper finding 1 kill is really exciting in a really dire spot, but they're here first for this dragon, and that's something I always look at. You got to control all these choke points. They have a lot of damage, but the members of Cloud9, like, they already have 2 dragons. They don't even necessarily need to contest it, but that looks to be the play as Darshan coming down. They're just like, yeah, let's just blow this open. We are so strong. Let's just use all the extra gold that we have in our inventories, and Darshan coming around the flank, just going right on in.
Oh goodness, Kaido is going to be able to find a lockdown at least. The Undying Rage does come out. He's able to dash back into his team. It's a big root onto Viper, who is a pivotal player right now for the team. The Shroud comes out. Can Viper escape? He's going to be able to dash over the wall. Copy.
He's
able to follow
alive.
that one up, but he's barely
They're both alive.
at the end of the day. They're not going to be able to get this dragon, though. It's easy for C9.
All right. I mean, Darshan, that was a lot of confidence walking into that bush completely blind. You knew most of them were over there, and he just does it anyway. But I'm so impressed that both Darshan and Viper live. They find themselves in the middle of the enemy teams, and they both find their way out. But at the end of the day, Cloud9 finds themselves another dragon. They're still up 10,000 gold. They still control the map. And as long as they're able to play in these areas of pockets of vision where TSM can't see them, it's going to be really, really tough for TSM to come back. Yes, eventually, Rise damage is really good late game. Graves is really incredible late game. Jinx does a lot of damage, but you got to get there. You got to find that first kill, and I don't know whether they're going to be able to do that.
And how far behind is it that you can get to actually really have, you know, those anticipations kind of in sight, right? For Instinct to maybe be able to climb up and catch up. He's not far behind in creep or anything like that, but the team is not able to support this Jinx that needs to stay alive to deal the damage necessary. And there is, you know, some decent crowd control, but maybe not as much as Instinct might want when they're facing up against players like, or champions like Hecarim, like Tryndamere, like Ahri, who are going to be going in, I mean, 110% every single time. So being this far back at this early part in the game, is it too much? We'll have to see. The depth charge comes out. It's going to pop up too, but TSM immediately, they have to run away from this fight. We can see Malice maybe looking for an in here. He has Onslaught of Shadows available. There it comes out. He's able to get the fear onto Gerson, who's already walking away. And it's the pull away so that the dredge line doesn't come through. On the backside, a huge root as well that's going to ensure the Instinct goes down on top of it. And that Jinx that I was saying needs to stay alive isn't going to be able to do it. Neither is Viper.
Oh, they get one.
As sneaky as he normally is, it is a nice little shutdown right there thanks to the ultimate from Hyper, but that's the most TSM's going to be able to take, and they'll lose Baron in the process.
Yeah, I really love the ability for them to try and find something there, right? Viper still diving in, looking for opportunities to blow up individual members. Unfortunately, they are just so far behind that Cloud9, they kind of force their way in, and it's still enough. Hyper
Oh,
You okay,
he wanted to look for
buddy?
something. You don't need every single member there to take the Baron down when it's only at 2,500 health, though. That means some nice little dashes over the wall. And sure, Darshan picks up a kill and the Baron. An attempt there from Instinct doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, it's the point of the game where TSM are so far behind, they just got to try and find something. And the thing is, like, TSM try and find a pick onto Isles, who has enough tools to get himself away. And this engage coming through from Cloud9, right, isn't super clean. They aren't able to quite find Yurson. It eventually takes Isles flashing forward to find the counter pick. And the most impressive part is, again, Copy dashing through the team in order to find Everfrost onto Instinct. And then after that, it's just a matter of like, oh, we are still 10,000 gold ahead. I hope you didn't forget. And even with that, it ends up being a 3-for-1.
And now it's almost 12,000 after some nice clears from the jungle. They're able to throw some vision down, clear out some of the defensive vision that TSM is trying to support their late game play style with. It is just looking harder and harder, though, because that, I mean, 23 and a half minutes, and you're 1,000 gold away from 50K, Joshi. That's just not fair. That's
not fair at all. I mean, it's looking really, really rough at this point. King continuing to try and find everything he can from his opponents. And let's also remind people that King, you know, hasn't had a lot of opportunity to scrim with his team. Typically, it's been Sven, who's been scrimming with the Cloud9 Academy roster as they play up against the Cloud9 LCS team. And Cloud9 Academy, still looking good. Good charm.
Yurson maybe looking for an initiation there. He ends up hex flashing away. Viper is the one to go in. He pops out into the shroud, but it's a big initiation on the backside. Yurson has to run away. Viper still able to fancy foot around this one and stay alive, but Hyper, on the other hand, likely won't be able to. Not against 4 members. He's able to flash towards the wall. Halfway dashes, but gets taken down by Malice before he's able to get through.
I mean, we're seeing some individual moments of brilliance from a lot of the members of TSM, right? They're not losing as many members as would typically be expected considering how large these gold leads are. And the biggest thing is still that Darshan is so far ahead, even with that solo kill that Viper picked up, that he's kind of able to push with impunity. And in these 4v5s that Cloud9 are taking, you know, at least TSM have 5 members. They're not losing that much, but now that they have lost one person, the map is going to fall apart with clinical precision like Cloud9 always do.
There it is, clinical precision, 1, 2, 3, 4 objectives in just a few seconds, not including the 2 that they took about 20 seconds ago thanks to the solo push that Darshan had up there by himself. They're so far ahead now at this point, 39,000 to 53,000 gold. All the objectives have gone over to C9. They just get a reset, buy 1 or 2 more items, and then go up to finish the game.
Yeah, I mean, you stop for Cloud Dragon on the way, so you get the full soul, make sure you get everything you could possibly ask for. But then at this point, it's basically Cloud9 walking in and dancing in TSM's base. There's not a lot that TSM can do. Their members just don't do enough damage. And, you know, we've seen some overextensions before. There's plenty of opportunities for Cloud9 to give up this game. But I think at this point, we got to ask, how do TSM start looking at Game 2? Because they don't want to go down to the lower bracket either.
No, they really don't. We don't want to see another sweep for the day here. You know that TSM have the ability, but again, you know, this composition makes it really difficult for them if they don't get a good early start. That is going to be the Realm Warp. Instinct stays away from that. But Darshan, again, speedy boy, he's able to just pop Ghost and get the heck out.
Yeah. Good stuff. You know, I know this is programs powered by Verizon, but sometimes I wonder if GDQ is having an opportunity here. We are speed running most of these series so far. This is so fast. 26 minutes into the game, and Cloud9 are looking to end.
They are, and there's not a lot that can be done here by TSM. They're not even able to poke out the damage they need to, and on the opposite side, it ends up being Malice that goes in. Isles takes a bit of damage, but the towers are down. Now Viper has to run away as he's split apart. The charm doesn't hit, sure, but the members of TSM end up getting jumped on continuously, and now once again, we're just watching some stats getting padded before the Nexus gets taken down, and quite definitively, it is C9 going into Game 2 looking for a sweep.
Cloud9, dominant performance in this first game, right? Every single thing was looking really good. The fact that Darshan was able to totally take control of the game up in the top side of the map and double a lot of Viper's CS throughout that entire game, really good stuff. But I feel like it really just broke completely into something that was unwinnable as soon as they took like that skirmish in the bottom side that was looking pretty good, honestly, for the members of TSM until it didn't.
That's how a lot of the fights ended up going. I mean, from the very first minute, right? It seemed like they were making some good initiations, but honestly, there wasn't a lot of hyper in the early game, and I do think that kind of hindered this ability for TSM and the composition that they had to really retain the early game to be able to get to the late game. Because 26.5 minutes, I mean, when the game ends there, sure, you got to the late game, but it's kind of the beginning of the late game, to be honest, and it didn't feel that way if you were watching C9 Academy. But it is a best of 3. There are going to be 2 games at least in this series. So if you guys stick around, we will come back to game number 2 here. TSM again looking to sweep this, or C9 Academy looking to sweep this one against TSM Academy.